Okay, so you know all of those times that astrologers be like, hey, your rising sign is so much more important than any other planetary placement in your chart, including your sun sign. And then no one believes us. Right. I finally figured out how I can show you the receipts. That's right. It's a new series where we look at each one of the rising signs and break down which each one of the rising signs means by looking at each one of the 12 signs in that chart. Let's get into it. Oh, hey, cosmic cuties. It is your friendo, the Lady Ms. Vagina Jenkins, Black Queer Autistic Artist and Astrologer. And that's right, this is the second video in the series called The Secrets of the Signs, where we break down how much information can be gleaned just by knowing a rising sign for a person. Now, mind you, this is possible because we are using the traditional astrology technique of whole sign houses. If you use Placidus or any other house system, your mileage may vary. Also, before we go any further, I would like to mention that I'm wearing a lovely hair accessory that comes from a store in Oakland, or a boutique rather, called Forever Mood. So I want to shout out Forever Mood Oakland, and also the folks that gave me this. My good friends Lila and Rachel at Femme and Femme law firm. I feel like a royal, and I felt like it was perfect for a Leo season video. So thank you, Rachel and Lila of Femme and Femme, and thank you to Forever Mood Boutique for stocking such finery. And then I've paired it with some of my vintage clip-on earring collection. Oops. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. To the video. Leo risings. First and foremost, I think of the rising sign as a kind of lens or filter through which you will approach your journey of life. It's kind of the energy that you came here to embody. So if we're thinking about a lens or filter or embodied experience of Leo energy, I specifically think about adjectives like warm or empathetic. I think about confidence. I think about leadership. That's the kind of energy that I think of when I think about Leo energy. And the reason why I think that is because Leo is a fixed fire sign. So fire is the energy of like that passion, that spark. But somehow Leo is able to take a spark and sustain it. That's what I think of when I think about fixed energy that is fire. So what does it mean to sustain a spark? Is it that feeling of like sitting next to like a warm campfire, or bathing one's body in the sun, like literally sunbathing? Speaking of those kinds of feelings that Leo energy might evoke, it's really interesting that Leo is ruled by the sun, one of two planetary placements that are luminary based, the sun or the moon. We already talked about the moon with Cancer, but yeah, when we're thinking about the sun being a place of rulership, what is it like to be embodying the experience of the sun and shining on others? And then what does that mean in terms of your sense of self being informed by an impossible lack of reciprocity? I think we often think about the stereotype of Leo energy and how they need to be in the spotlight, they need to be seen, and they need to shine. But is it really a need, or is it them shining on everyone else and waiting for that moment of like intentional, mutual support, kindness, warmth coming from other people that they have already supported and shined upon? I say that because I want to talk about all of these 12 houses that make up the Leo risings chart, but I want to talk about them in their axis. So yes, if the Leo rising energy is rooted in that kind of energy and it's along an axis of the 1st and 7th house, then what does it mean to relate to others? seventh house stuff as a Leo rising. So what is the experience of relating to others through an Aquarian lens? And I think sometimes it can be that experience of Leos having shined on others and then feeling somehow, capital S, capital K, capital W, some kind of way about it all. That lack of reciprocity will get to you. It makes the Leo rising hold themselves somehow separate from people, from humanity. And or could it be the experience of being attracted to the traits in other people that feel Aquarian? And when I think about that Aquarian energy, I think about that feeling of often feeling as if they don't belong. I think that there's a lot about queerness or weirdness with Aquarian energy, and a certain sort of radicalness. What is it like to want to be in one-on-one connection with folks that represent some sort of outsider, weird, queer type of energy, or specifically relationships that embody that kind of energy? If it is a romantic relationship, it is definitely not a traditional romantic relationship. If it is a business partnership, it is not the traditional way of signing contracts and doing business. So yeah, those are some of the first seventh house axis things. Now let's move on to the second and eighth house axis for Leo risings. So the second eighth house axis for Leo risings is going to be Virgo Pisces energy. Let's talk about it. So I often think about the second and eighth house axis in terms of money and values. The second house is more of like what it is that you earn in terms of money or your internalized values in the world. Whereas I think the eighth house is more of the values that you share with your partner or close one-on-one relationships, or straight up the material resources, money, finances that you share as a result of your one-on-one relationships with others. So if the eighth house is the sharing of resources and the second house is the earning of resources, with a Pisces eighth house, this could be the experience of one who is very generous with their material resources, in that Pisces energy is it's so connected, or it wants to be so connected, and understands that we are all one, and also that there is no scarcity, that the reality is that any scarcity that exists in terms of financial resources is absolutely falsely created through systems of like white supremacy and capitalism, right? That's that kind of like Pisces eighth house energy. So it's a very generous energy because it knows that we're all connected, scarcity is false, and I feel better and more in alignment with my human highest self when I am sharing and generous with my shared resources. Then on the other hand, we got the second house axis, which is how I earn my money. And with a Virgo in the second house experience, I wonder very much about the experience of Leo risings feeling as if they have to have their shit together in some kind of way in order to be able to net financial resources for themselves. And I'm talking about the experience of like earned money, you know, not those sort of eighth house shared resources. If this is an employee, this is the person that's always showing up, trying to make sure that they've dotted their I's, crossed their T's, that kind of energy. Might also be the energy of one who's a little bit too critical in a non-productive way, or in a way that people perceive as non-productive. Where's the line between critique and perfection? That kind of energy. With a second house ruled by Mercury, I wonder about the influence of writing, sharing ideas, conversations, or speechifying, those kinds of things being part of how they earn their money. Because Virgo is so known as a planet of service, is there any way that this person earns their money through the lens of like guiding people to somehow improve their lives? And then we get to the third and ninth house axis for Leo risings. So for Leo risings, the third house would be in Libra and the ninth house would be in Aries. A lot about the third house to me is thoughts, both how we think, like our mental landscape and how that's organized and what that feels like, but also the sorts of things that we think about. Third house can also be experiences of our siblings, like the first folks that we were able to talk and communicate with. It's just such a Mercury associated house for me. So I think about the ideas that we share, how we connect to the people immediately in our vicinity. So like a lot of times our early childhood experiences, that is our siblings. So siblings can be part of the third house. So yeah, basically ideas, communications, how we use our communications to connect to the people in our immediate environment. That's kind of the stuff of the third house. Whereas the ninth house kind of takes those ideas and that data that we have collected in the third house and synthesizes it into a system of meaning somehow. Like when we're asking those deep questions about like why, that's ninth house stuff. I feel like the what and the communicating some of the mundane and everyday stuff, that is more the third house. So we've got the difference between third house Libra and ninth house Aries. The third house that's in Libra, what does this person learn through their conversations? They're using ideas to connect with other people. And how is that communication somehow rooted in diplomacy, being charismatic, being perceived as kind or nice? I wonder a lot about how they find themselves or center themselves in how they make meaning, you know? Those ninth house kinds of issues. And I'm asking about the experience of the self because of the Aries energy of it all. I also wonder about a worldview that is more centered in sort of Mars or Martian values. Is this a worldview that is centered on fighting for what you want? Or somehow intimately understanding power struggles? Or is this a person who is just simply incredibly passionate about the ideas of systems of beliefs or personal philosophy making or higher learning generally speaking? Is this a person who enjoys like one of those intellectual debate barring about one's beliefs? You know, that kind of Mars energy. And then we come to the 4th and 10th house axis for Leo risings. And I want to say this is the sticking point. Maybe it's not a sticking point. Maybe it's a point of challenge. Let's say that. I just find it incredibly interesting that the Leo rising, what they are meant to embody and what they bring to any given space, is not the energy that is at their foundation. Their foundational energy, their 4th house energy, their IC energy is in Scorpio kinds of vibes. Scorpio is a fixed water sign. Is still waters run deep. Absolutely applies here. Still waters can also run stagnant. I feel like that is the Scorpio 4th house conundrum, is how do you allow yourself to feel the full depths of Scorpio feelings, that Plutonian kind of heaviness, intensity? How do you allow yourself the space to feel those feelings and also not get stuck? You know, the 4th and 10th house axis also deals with our experiences of home and family versus like career and public reputation. It can speak a bit to work and life balance. So with Scorpio being a Mars-ruled sign, I also wonder about experiences of home and family for the Leo rising. And I wonder about experiences of home and family that might be rooted in Mars energy, like straight up like experiences of conflict or violence or aggression or just argumentative sorts of behaviors, or experiences that feel more Plutonian, where that rage was still but palpable, or not necessarily expressed, but somehow strategically released. When I think about the difference between how Aries does Mars and Scorpio does Mars, the word strategy always comes to mind. I also wonder about home and family experiences that are somehow rooted in secrecy. How somehow it might be the Leo rising's lot in life to expose those family secrets and bring them to the light somehow. And then the Leo rising has Taurus in the 10th house of career and public reputation. Taurus is the fixed earth sign. ruled by Venus. And so what I like about that is that a Leo rising in the workplace may be perceived as someone who is steady, dependable, loyal, fixed energy. And because it's fixed earth energy, this is that type of grounded, dependable type energy. It's giving responsible, if not a little stubborn, perhaps. I would definitely try and find Venus elsewhere in the chart to understand a little bit more about how this person can attract the things that they desire through the lens of their career or public reputation somehow. That's what I would do if I were a Leo rising. Particularly if I were a Leo rising who had a sun in the night half of the chart below the line of the horizon. And then we come to the 5th, 11th house axis for Leo risings. And I feel like this is why y'all be thinking that Leo risings are so fun. Because you will meet a Leo rising in an 11th house context and think, oh my God, this is who this person is. The Gemini of it all. 5th and 11th house axis is all about pleasure. 5th house more so about the pleasure that you experience on your own. So your own sense of hobbies or your own like fun, sexy sex life or kink experiences. Hobbies, creative expression can go in here. Those kinds of things go under the 5th house. The 11th house is the kinds of pleasure that you experience as a group, as a result of your place in society. The friend groups that you belong to, maybe even the professional associations, because the 11th house comes right after the 10th house of career. And so when you meet a Leo rising in a group context, what you're meeting is their Gemini energy, their love of and curiosity for conversing with other people, their curiosity about how other people do their lives, the number of friends that they have or number of friend groups that they can belong to or number of interests that they have. On the other hand, we've got the 5th house Sagittarius energy and what solo pleasure feels like and how that might be rooted in experiences of freedom and expansiveness. This could be experiences of hobbies that are somehow rooted in different sort of cultural experiences or traveling. When I think about 5th house and Sagittarius, this is a very solo poly kind of energy. 5th house is the joy of connecting to people because it makes your soul feel free, not because you're trying to bond and mate for life. And then finally, we come to the 6th and 12th house axis. So for the Leo rising, there is a Cancer 12th house and a Capricorn 6th house. So the 6th and 12th house axis, I think, is so much about... So my grandma always used to say this quote about being in the world, not of the world. And for some reason, that really, really reminds me of the 6th and 12th house axis. The 6th house is just like the little mundane things that we do every day that end up contributing to the quality of our life. Yeah, your workplace could show up in the 6th house because sometimes people have jobs that they go to from 9 to 5 and that takes up a large part of your day. Or your health practices, the way that you show up and you do your physical fitness or diet and exercise, and that contributes somehow to your feeling of health. Like those things, that kind of getting your shit together type vibe, that's in the 6th house. Whereas the 12th house is kind of the spiritual version of all of that. What is your spiritual hygiene like? What are the ways in which you are healing, growing, advancing? And also, what are the ways in which you are spiritually backsliding and self-betraying yourself? So when we have the difference between a 6th house that is rooted in that Capricorn energy versus 12th house rooted in that Cancer energy, we might have the experience of a 12th house, a spiritual experience that is rooted in care and nurture, or at least it should be. What is probably more likely the case is that there is the experience of self-betrayal at not nurturing, protecting, and caring and nurturing for oneself. So not being in that kind of Cancer energy could be the self-betrayal. And because Cancer is so much associated with experiences of home and family, are there experiences of self-betrayal or spiritual backsliding that are rooted in family trauma? And then once again, going back to that Scorpio 4th house, what are the secrets that need to be exposed, and what is your role in doing that work? And then with a Capricorn ruled 6th house, this is the energy of leadership, particularly in this earth kind of way. What do your daily routines need to look like in order for you to feel as if you have a sense of structure and stability in your life, but you are also meeting goals? That is the kind of Capricorn energy that I think of. I think about the goat going up the mountain, hitting all of these milestones as it goes, but for the idea of an ultimate goal. My one caution would be, though, with Capricorn energy, not to get too sucked into the idea of achievement, that you don't pay attention to the process that gets you to the goal. So that's it. That is all 12 houses for a Leo rising. Do we, 1, understand Leo rising a little bit more? 2, do you understand that the rising sign is so important and how much information we can glean just from knowing this one planetary placement? I know what your entire chart looks like. That is powerful stuff. Anywho, are you a Leo rising? Did you resonate with this video at all? Did it raise any questions? If so, maybe comment below. At any rate, thank you so much for watching this video and for supporting my work. If you would like to deepen your support of my work, please contemplate becoming a member of this channel. Membership starts at $3.99 a month and you get really cool perks, not the least of which is supporting your favorite Black queer autistic astrologer. If the monthly commitment seems like too much for your budget, please consider at least doing a one-time gift via the super thanks button below. And if neither of those options feel like they're within your capacity right now, I absolutely understand and would encourage instead just commenting, liking, sharing this video, sharing my legend, telling people to book a reading. All of those supportive things help as well. Thank you so much for having my back, y'all. I appreciate you, and thank you for making time for queer astrology. Bye.